So let's just let the dust settle a bit. Just arrive where you're at. If there's anything that anyone would particularly like to work on tonight or talk about, I'm open to hearing it. Otherwise, we'll just throw the door open and work with whatever comes through. Oh, let me fix that. There we go. This has been all day, so there's probably something astrological going on. All right, so let's just sink in. We all found our way into the class, even though I messed it up. Place your attention at the forehead and crown. Let your eyes fall to a spot on the floor in front of you. And just begin to watch the breath. As you breathe in, you're right there with that inhale. As you breathe out, you're right there with that exhale. And you're paying such wholehearted attention that you're even aware of the little gap of space in between the inhale and exhale. Let's do that for a while, and then we'll talk a little bit. Now we're going to continue to practice tonight, but I just want to draw your attention to something before we go back in. You know, meditation is a very special form of directing the attention. And as we've discussed in other classes, attention is a very powerful thing. Whatever you look at expands, it becomes more of itself. The problem with human beings is we almost never look directly at something and allow it to be what it is on its own terms. I mean, how often is it that you look at anything in your life, whether it's during your workday or during a meal or interacting with another person, where there isn't some part of you trying to act upon it or change it or manipulate it in some way or solve it in some way. It's a very, very rare thing that you look at anything without manipulative intent. When I say manipulative, I don't mean it with all of the negative connotations that come with that word. I just mean that there's an agenda there. In fact, that agenda is usually what's directing your attention. We've said in the past that's usually driven by a bunch of fears and desires. But for most moments in your day, if you're looking at something, it's because you either want to change some aspect of your moment or change some aspect of the thing you're looking at. But there's a very, very powerful thing that occurs when you give something your attention with no agenda. In my live classes, when I have students that are sensitive enough to experience this, one of the things I'll do is I will look at them while forgetting everything I know about them. I will literally erase their past from my being. I'll erase our past together, and I'll just look directly at them. And when you do that, when you're someone who's able to do that, the person that you are looking at feels this opening inside of them. They feel this shift, this freedom. And I've taught that at many different levels. I think one of the levels I most commonly teach it at is the level of, saying that one of the best things you can do for someone in trouble is have faith in them. Have faith in their ability to figure things out, to not constantly try and act on them and change them. But at the deepest level, and many of you are ready for this, it is just the ability to give them your attention with no agenda. One of the reasons that I'm able to sit down and teach these courses, and I've been showing up for well over 20 years now, always with something to say. We have some things that are somewhat repetitive, but in general, it's always a fresh teaching. The reason I'm able to do that is because I show up and I just give you my attention with no agenda. And so the moment starts to evolve. When you give your attention to something with no agenda, it begins to clarify itself and evolve. That's the power of attention. When you give something your attention with your agenda, then your attention becomes split. You start evolving all the little intricacies of the things you want to change, and you evolve the person simultaneously, but things evolve in different directions at the same time. That evolution matches the mess of your agenda. But when I sit down, I don't usually know what I'm going to talk about. And if I do think I know what I'm going to talk about, I let go of it completely so that the moment can just evolve as naturally as possible. None of this happens out of any brilliance of my own. Actually, you guys are usually the biggest determining factor of what's going to come out, how clear it's going to be. 9 times out of 10. So there's this unbelievable power that meditation teaches you. And that is a very simple power of agendaless attention. Attention with non-manipulation. attention that is not split into a million different fragments. I think in the beginning, most people think of that as this like spiritual force and this will and things like that. And it actually, I think, feels that way sometimes when a teacher looks at you like that directly, especially if they're just looking at you and not the group as a whole. But from the perspective of the person who is providing the attention, it doesn't feel strongly willful. What it feels like is just unabashed openness. The will is just a willingness to go in any direction. To be anchored in the moment without describing the moment to yourself. To be anchored in the object of your attention without describing the object of your attention, without pulling its past forward, without insisting on any aspect of its future or asking it to be anything different than what it is. So that's a power that is within your reach. Everybody in this room tonight is capable of that. You just have to give yourself to it. So tonight, we're going to do the moving up and down the mountain technique. But I want you to do it with this perspective in mind. Okay, the moving up and down the mountain, for anyone who hasn't done that, we have 3 different centers that we focus on, right? We have the head center, which is just like, imagine you have like a ball of energy at your head. You're kind of anchored at the crown and the forehead. And that's just sort of where your energy resides. And then we move down to the area of the heart. And then we move down to the area just below the navel. And then we'll move back up to the heart, back up to the crown. And we're just moving through different energy centers in our body, but we're limiting it to those 3. But I want you to give your attention to those centers with no agenda. You're not looking for anything to happen. You're not trying to change anything that's there. You're not waiting for some moment to arrive that isn't here. You are just giving your unmanipulated attention to that center for no purpose at all. No idea in mind at all. You're not trying to become more spiritual, whatever that means. Not trying to have any kind of experience at all. Show yourself what that kind of attention feels like and train yourself to give it at the same time. This is a delicate skill that almost nobody has, but is within your reach if you're willing to just open to it. It's kind of like, I imagine it's kind of like surfing. You know, it's like having enough balance to place your attention somewhere, but being flexible enough to not ask anything of the object of your attention. How is that like surfing? I don't know. I think just the balance of it with the freedom of movement. Are there any questions about that before we try it? It's just a slight lens shift from what I've handed you before. Probably something you've stumbled on. But tonight I want you to actually step into that teaching and experience it on yourself. So at each center, you are going to give that center your attention with no agenda, no manipulation, nothing at all. And I want you to actually see what that does. I want you to have an opportunity to see how that evolves your energy. What clean evolution feels like. But don't look for it. Let it show you. Don't figure out how you're going to describe it so that you end up painting an experience over what's happening. Instead, just let it show you. Okay. Let's start at the top of the head, forehead and crown. And just give your attention to the forehead and crown. You'll be breathing in and breathing out, and that's fine. But give your attention to the forehead and crown. No agenda. Nothing to figure out. Nothing to achieve. Your attention directs the power of beingness. Give your attention to the forehead and crown. Now allow the attention to come down to the heart center. Be in the heart center with your attention. No manipulation. No agenda. What does clean being feel like in this center? Now allow your attention to drop down into the lower center, like a ball of attention encompassing just below the navel, the pelvic floor, a little bit above the belly button. Give your unmanipulative attention, no agenda, to the lower center. Be with it exactly the way it is. Rise back up to the heart center. Just a shift in the attention. Be with the heart exactly as it is. Nothing to clean, nothing to correct. The energy just wants to unfold. Just provide your attention and let it be what it needs to be, do what it needs to do. It's okay if there's a little discomfort. It never lasts for long, unless you resist it. Then it'll last a lifetime. We'll do another round. For now, come back up to the head center. Be at your head center. Forehead and crown. Forehead and crown and anything else that just wants to light up in the process. We're going to move through them again, but I'd like to add on to this a little bit. I'd like to give you a tool that's going to help you go deeper. You know, imagine if you would imagine you were, let's say you were sitting in the wilderness. And you were waiting for a sign that you knew could come at any second, but would require you to act immediately on it. You were told perhaps that this sign can come through any of your senses or a combination of those senses. But it could happen in an instant. And you would have to act on it right away. If you failed to be ready to pick up the sign, you would be missing out on the most important realization of your life. What do you think that would do to your consciousness? I'll tell you. It would actually be a process of change. At first, you would sit down and you would notice that your mind is kind of noisy. And so while you were listening or looking or feeling for that sign, you would start to notice that your mind is very loud and that it is misdirecting your attention, pulling your attention towards it when your attention really needs to be outward, ready. Then you might start to notice that you're looking for a specific sign. You've got some preconceived idea of what you are going to see, hear, feel, and that preconceived idea is also pulling on your attention, keeping a part of you from being ready for what actually is going to show up. And so you would have to start letting go of that preconceived idea to make yourself more available to not miss it when it comes, to not misunderstand it when it arrives. You know, if you're just looking for it as a vision and it comes as a feeling, you're going to miss it. If you're waiting to hear something and it shows up as a shift in color and light, you're going to miss it. And so after a while, you start to get some control over your mind, as we always do in meditation. And maybe you've even gotten things a little more quiet, and probably the next phase would be this fierceness. This kind of intensity of like, I am ready, I'm going to catch it. And maybe your nervous system is kind of just poised and ready and maybe even a little tense. But that state in and of itself is also a very intense state. It has its own kind of ability to tug on your attention, doesn't it? You're focusing more on the readiness than the thing you're ready for. Can you see that? So probably that would be one of the last stages before you enter into the stage where you really can pick up a subtle sign. And the transition from that readiness would be into a state of complete open relaxation, where you've let go of everything and you're just a sensory vehicle, open, available, attentive. This is the true meditative state. Everything else is concentration. But that open, unconjured, unmanipulative, no agenda availability, that's the meditative state. That's the state where the highest parts of yourself can actually communicate with you, where they can place signs in your environment that you can pick up on. And you'll be able to interpret them because you won't be doing it through your brain. You'll just be doing it through direct perception. I want you to go back through the moving up and down the mountain technique. But I want you to give your attention in a way where you are so open and so relaxed, so willing and ready, that if the universe were going to send you the most important sign of your life through that particular object of your attention, that you would be able to catch even the subtlest shift. This is poised and relaxed. You might have to go through some stages to get there, but I want you to put yourself through that process. This is the deeper level of that technique. Let's do that now. Top of the head, forehead and crown. Place your attention there with no agenda. And just be so given and awake as if you need to be ready for the most important message that could ever show up in your life. Poised on a razor's edge, but completely released at the same time. This is the key to mastering the power of your attention. Put yourself through that process now. Come down to the heart center. All your attention at the heart. Ready to pick up even the subtlest shift in energy. Ready with all your senses at once. And yet completely released at the same time. That vital balance. Down to the lower center. A sphere of sensation centered just below the navel. Rise back up to the heart. No agenda. Be with what's there. Available to receive. Poised, but released. Rise up to the top of the head, forehead and crown. Poised on a razor's edge. Released and ready. Okay, let's come out. Good job. Hopefully you were able to have an experience with the power of attention. Could you feel how different the second round was from the first? There's power in that space, that balanced space between intensity and relaxation. It opens things up. I imagine your body feels pretty different as well. You can use this on literally anything in your life. You can use this to evolve energy centers in your body, but you can even use this to evolve a difficult relationship that you're in. You can use this to evolve the solution to a problem. It's a way of thinking without thinking. You just give something your attention, and that natural process of unfolding has to happen. Evolution speeds up. It actually becomes something different. But like so many things in spiritual life, it can't become something different until you no longer ask it to be something different. You have to give it your attention without manipulating it, without thinking it needs to be something different than it is. And if you can do that, it will evolve before your eyes. Any questions or comments about any of that? This is the essential secret of all spiritual practice. Mm-hmm. You put yourself through those stages. That's great. Just for the recording, someone just said that he thought initially that it would be a space of anticipation, and it actually ended up being a space of deep openness, and that is the exact experience. That openness is reality. That is the vast ocean of reality that you can spend lifetimes exploring. But the doorway is a very strange balance between intensity and relaxation with focus and sustained awareness. See, there's a comment here. Ella's asking, is this similar to being present in the moment? Yes, Eladine, this is definitely similar to being present in the moment. One of the things that happens in spiritual life, though, is we hear certain teachings and then we think we understand them. Like love is one of those teachings. People think they know what love is, and so they stop exploring it with fresh eyes. Present moment living is something a lot of people think they know. Mindfulness is something people really think they know, and so they stop exploring it with fresh eyes. So it's the job of a spiritual teacher to find different ways to explain the actual experience so that you don't replace it with what you think it is from something else, right? But yes, this is the true result of living in the present moment. But remaining in the present moment actually requires this bizarre balancing act that very few people ever bother to master. In the moment, the object of your attention becomes the moment itself. But you are in that state of waiting, in that state of readiness. And it is a relaxed state that simultaneously sits on a razor's edge. Just a strange paradox that is actually the secret to everything. So strange that you'll find it falls out of your head. So if you had an experience tonight, you would be smart to write it down before you get too far from this session. Nothing else in life is ever going to ask this of you. So it slips away. All right, anybody? Anything else? So this week, I'd like you to work on this. I'm sorry, work with this, not on it. Spend some time just realizing this teaching in yourself. It can do amazing things for your week. All right, I'm going to let you all get back to your lives. Sorry about the confusion early on, and I will be here next week. All right, bye everybody. Thank you. Night.